Welcome back to Product Data Weekly. This is a short practical podcast where each week we break down the operational issues that slow down launches, create manual work, or quietly limit growth inside product data and e-commerce teams. There's no theory, no hype, just what we see actually happening inside of catalogs at scale. I'm Claire, co-founder of SKU Launch and Start With Data, and we have...
Hi everyone, it's Ben here again.
Cool. So this week we wanted to just chat through something that we saw an acquisition that happened last week where Akeneo has acquired PricingHub. And this is something that got us kind of thinking about PIM and pricing and why it hasn't been included in PIM over the past, forever really. Pricing just hasn't existed in the PIM. It's something that we've seen on many RFPs. So it's quite an interesting acquisition. I think we're going to see probably more of those. I think we will probably see whether it's more pricing platforms or I think there'll be things like compliance platforms or other types of things that will make that whole product life cycle make sense. So yeah, we got thinking about this. We thought that we would just run through the reasons why historically pricing has never sat within a PIM, and just kind of chat through that because it's an interesting topic. What about you, Ben? What do you want to say?
Just echoing what you just said, really. It's funny, when people say we want to store our pricing in the PIM, it's like, what is pricing? What is pricing to you? So most of the time, it's like cost price and retail price is the basic, or sales price is the basic thing around pricing. Pricing is like a huge domain of process and requirements, over and above just static cost pricing and retail pricing. And we're, I'm not going to profess we're not pricing experts, right? But I think there's a lot of synergies, isn't there? Codependencies, I think, which is what we're going to talk through.
Yeah, and I guess it's just that whole, we're very clear, obviously, what the purpose of a PIM is. And the PIM tells you what the product is, but it doesn't tell you kind of what it was worth yesterday, what it's worth tomorrow, or, what you bought it for, what you should be selling it for, all of that. I think maybe if we just break down the reasons why. Do you want to take reason one?
I think the first reason historically, and the other thing that's worth just considering all this is I think the reason a lot of PIM solution providers haven't really tackled pricing is because it's a very different set of use cases and technology requirements, like engineering requirements to running static data stores, that are changing frequently. So I guess that's the first point, right? It's product data and price run on different clocks. They run on different kind of time horizons, right? So, PIMs traditionally have been built for descriptive data, facts about things that are are relatively stable, right? I mean, they're not stable in that some people onboard a lot of products into their PIM, and some people change a lot of attributes, but they're not relatively. You write these things or you create them once, an attribute, value, a description, and so the whole architecture of most PIM vendors is based on that. It's enrich, approve, publish. And then it's not just a constant throughput of change. And I think then because they've built them that way, it's very hard to deal with more operational. So it's data. So pricing is high volume, high compute. It's calculate the price. It could be customer specific pricing. It could be discounts. It could be promotion. There's a huge amount of compute and logic required in dynamic pricing intelligence. I sound like I'm just making up words now. So I think they are all words, aren't they, in the industry?
Well, they are all they are all things that people would do.
So a PIMs have always been built for facts that hold still. Pricing doesn't hold still. Okay, pricing doesn't hold still. So that's the first reason that PIMs don't do pricing very well.
Yeah, and I guess that follows on to what we believe is reason 2, which is that the price isn't a content problem. So it's all about the margin. It's about, the costs, the contracts, the tax, the currency, discounting, as you said, different prices for different customers. And that is genuinely an ERP, or there's obviously other ways of managing pricing, but it's a very complicated type of setup. It's also, there's that whole thing, like if somebody gets some product content wrong, somebody might tut a bit about it, but if somebody gets a price wrong in wherever it's being sold, that has a really big financial impact to the business. So there is, different owners tend to hold pricing and hold product information. So you'll have, pricing normally will sit, again, depending on what type of business, size of business, but commercial, finance, category teams. Whereas traditionally, PIM normally would sit with digital merchandising, e-commerce type of teams. So, and they don't really look at the same thing. They're not coming at it from the same angle. So that's why historically it's been different.
They don't buy the same tools or collaborate on the tool selection because they don't necessarily understand each other's worlds.
Exactly. So I think that's reason two, that I think it normally sits in different P&Ls as well. So
yeah, definitely. And then I think then reason three, you kind of mentioned it already. So this is very common in distributors, B2B distributors, where one product doesn't always have just one price. Okay, so a PIM model is like very structured around one record, has one attribute. And that's really good for like spec data, but one SKU can have like a list price, a cost price, channel specific pricing, customer group specific pricing, contract prices, promo prices, regional and currency variants. There's so many different permutations to pricing. And those aren't attributes, they're like a matrix with like lots of rules. And location pricing, okay. Marks and Spencer's location pricing, up the road from us, it's like going to too many Marks and Spencer's, you realise that some of them whack on like 20-30% per 30 pence per product, that sort of thing. So all of that has a high level of complexity around like matrix based pricing depending on location and stuff. And then we've seen some like horrific attempts to cram price into PIMs, like trying to capture that dimensionality. Is that a word? We'll
go with it.
So don't just add a price field to your PIM with a big table. It's not going to work, and you've got no context of customers, locations, or any of that stuff in the PIM. So it's a matrix. Pricing is a matrix.
Yeah.
You can't shove a matrix into a text field.
Yeah, and I think, I think with PricingHub as well, my understanding, again, we're not pricing experts, I think this is probably a play for AI, because it's kind of rolling up the product content and being able to optimize and look at
like real time,
exactly, and look at intelligent data out there of what's out there from a pricing perspective. So you're kind of rolling that up, which I would imagine gives a much higher chance of AI agents recommending you and converting. So I think it's quite an interesting acquisition. I've been thinking a lot about compliance and sustainability acquisitions as well. Is there any others that you think are
there was one earlier this year or last year, there was a PLM, product lifecycle management platform, bought a PIM. I think it was Centric buying, was it Content Serve? Well, I can't remember.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and that's another example of like, it makes logical sense, right? It's like if you look at the end-to-end product lifecycle and all the data domains associated, that's kind of upstream in the manufacturing side of businesses versus the downstream, made products and channel stuff, and it kind of makes logical sense for the two things to join together. I think like on this side, like the Akeneo acquisition is more about, the kind of, I don't know how to describe it, like the kind of like intelligence side of taking products to market as opposed to making products and then bringing them to market on the other deals. it's just natural that these things come together. And I think last thing I'd just say is, given, I would say, in about 70% of the PIM projects or selections we've run in Start with Data over the last 5 years, pricing has always come up in about 70% of them, which naturally says, well, if you had a pricing module, you could solve the pricing thing, then there's a big opportunity there, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks for tuning in this week, and thanks for chatting through that. If you want to get some more tips and tricks like this, or just some insight about what's happening in the industry, we also publish our weekly newsletter, and you can sign up to that at productdataweekly.com. And we will see you back next week. Have a great week, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye.